Hello, hello. My name is Angelique Jackson, Senior Entertainment Writer at Variety. And thank you so much for being here, for sticking around. And really, I love coming to a movie and hearing all the chatter at the end of it. It is the best part. It's how you know people really felt something and were engaged. And I am so thrilled to be able to do a little chatting myself tonight with one of the stars of this film, the Emmy and Tony nominated, and of course for this film, Gotham Award and Independent Spirit Award nominee, Brian Tyree Henry.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, sir, for being here. This film is so beautiful because it is the kind of movie that makes you feel things. It's the kind of movie that makes you want to reach out to people, talk to people. You know, I know that a lot of this was about finding that connection, both, on screen with James and Lindsay and behind the scenes with you and Jennifer, and of course with your director, Lila. Yeah. What has kind of been that overarching part of the experience that has stuck out when you have conversations like this and look back on the film?
First of all, Happy New Year, everybody. 2023 is here. I think that's one of the things that we wanted to peel back in this movie is what newness felt like for each person. Because as you saw in this film, you're watching two people traverse this world of newness, be it a connection with someone new, be it discovering that you have to live your life anew because, they're both disabled. Lindsay finds out that she's considered disabled and has to learn how to, be back home. I think that was something we really wanted to discover. And also, the script of this went through quite a few machinations. We started one way, then it morphed into another thing. So there was always this newness that we were trying to find. And I think that is part of the journey, I think, that you watch both of our heroes go through, is trying to find this newness within themselves, trying to find a way to bond anew, how to live anew, the possibility of something. And so that was a big part of what brought me and Jay together. I call her Jay. Because we wanted to figure out how to open that up and to find out what that gap was that was missing between these two characters. Because, the first rendition of it was pretty much following Lindsay on her journey of dealing with this disability that she had, acquired while serving in the war and having to come back home. And so, there were moments where it was just her going, from person to person, or, just trying to traverse this terrain that was very new to her, but there was nobody sticking. It was pretty much like, because it felt like you just knew she wasn't going to stay. It felt like you were watching this woman who, by all intents and purposes, had no reason to. And so what happened is there was a chemistry that was developing between she and I that we really wanted to crack open. And so, we had a time to step away and talk about things and learn each other. And then we came back and we're like, oh, that is what it is. Like, that's truly what it is. It doesn't have to be anything overcomplicated. It's just a story about two people trying to find newness and trying to find a relationship in that newness.
When you talk about newness, I know that you're always looking for things in your characters to explore. What was it about James that felt new to you?
A few things. I try to do this thing where I don't judge my characters, right? Like, I try to make sure that I am very much an observer of their lives. But James really irked me. Like, there was something, and let me explain that. I couldn't understand why he was where he was. I wanted so much more for him. I was very angry. I was just like, James, like, why are you still there? Why didn't you leave? Why were you drinking? Why are you still working at an auto body shop after being a person who was in a terrible car accident? Why aren't you using, your physical therapy? Why is your home still this? I was just like, why? Like, the whole time. And in that, I realized that I was judging him a bit. And I realized that the same questions I was asking him were questions that I needed to ask myself. and I saw a true reflection in all these cracks of James that was showing me in a way that I wasn't ready to expose. And so in that I was like, oh, damn it. I think I have to go through it. I think I have to go through it and figure it out. Because dealing with a character who has suffered so much loss, both physically, emotionally, in every kind of way, and he still has this glimmer about him. There was a glimmer about James that really just like was pouring through that I really wanted to develop and to experience. And so once I was able to let my guard down, because that's what I had to do, because I mean, begrudgingly, I really was like, you wanting to kick James in the ass every once in a while. I'm like, why aren't you going to therapy? And so I was like, oh, and that is probably what Brian needs to be saying to him. So I wanted to really just explore what that was, and I really wanted him to come out on the other side knowing that somebody cared about him. I wanted him to feel like the glimmer of who he was before still had a place to shine through. And so there was just something that just resonated with me every time I turned the page with him. And what was really great about what this script did is that there wasn't a lot for him to say. You know, really, like the dialogue was there, but it was the moments in between that you got to really see who he was. It was the moments that he was in his stillness that you got to really feel who he was and where he came from. And I think that was something I really wanted to explore, like even the ability, the lack of movement that he had to go through, or like what it was like for him to stand on his own 2 feet again, missing a foot, and like being in a place that he was born and raised in, that he now has to learn how to literally walk again, what that meant. Because I felt like grief, there was a metaphor through everything that he was going through that I needed to understand and experience in my own way. And I felt like viewers needed to see that too. I felt like after the tremendous grief and loss we had all been going through from 2020 up to now, I felt like I needed to purge. I felt like I wanted James to be a place that people felt like they could see their purging taking place, that they could feel like they were reflected in their loss and their grief, but also show that there's something on the other side, you know, like to show that you can make a connection, you can see possibilities through it all. It just takes learning how to walk again.
And I think that when you watch this film, that is what you kind of experience. You find yourself looking at James, looking at Lindsay, and seeing those kind of cracks, those things that you're not dealing with in yourself. And I think that is what makes this so beautiful. And I love that you mentioned care earlier, because from the moment you meet James, you can tell he really just cares about people. He has no judgment for Lindsay. He's very patient with her. But, you know, kind of what you mentioned, he has all this care for other people, but it seems like he's not caring for himself.
What a story, right? Like what a concept for us to give ourselves the things that we give other people. Like what an idea if we actually just like took a second to ask for what we need. If we actually took a second to put our sword and shield down for a while. Because that was another thing that I saw in James, was that here's this man who is carrying the weight of so many things. And the first time you meet him, technically, he seems like he's just an upstanding kind of guy. He comes out, he sees that this truck is smoking. What is wrong with this white woman? Is she okay? You know what I mean? But like, also, this is a great truck. Like, what, you know? So and then you get to see him show this care. And I think that what happens is that he sees the same kind of glimmer in him, in this person. And I think that that's all he ever wanted. And it's so crazy because by all walks of life, technically, these two were both born and raised in this town, and yet they have never met each other, and yet there is still so much for them to share with each other. There is this recognition that James sees in her, and then you start to see that blossom. I often think of their relationship as that of like when we were teenagers, right? Like when you meet somebody when you're a teen, it's so free, let's go get a snowball, like let's listen to this track. Oh, you got that CD, okay, cool. Like, and you start to see that with the two of them, which was really fun and exciting to explore. But then they realize that they're not teens, and then the reality undercuts every single moment, and it's like, oh, that weight happens again. And what do we do with that? And I think for me, human connection is truly the greatest salve that we could have, because after being in a world that told us to isolate, to lock down, to shelter in place, all these terrible words that were just like, be alone, you are yearning for just a human connection. And I find that some of the most intense and deepest human connections are unspoken sometimes. And what's also crazy about the two of them is that the word disabled, right? Like there's so much weight that comes with the word disability. And like, by all means, like disability means to me, like you lived your life one way, or you've been told that you aren't normal, right? Like this concept of normalcy, like everything you have to do in a disability is to try to find a way to be ordinary, which is strange. It's like, who sets that? Who says that? Like, who creates that kind of thing that you're disabled, and therefore that means in a way that you special needs, you need this thing. And so you find these two people who have these disabilities that you can't see, really, and little by little they start to realize that they're more than that. Little by little they start to realize that they are not their disabilities. And I think that there's something exciting about that kind of relationship when you start to see that you don't have to really hold everything together. You don't have to continue to like let one piece fall and pick it up and try to put it back in. You can actually just like fall apart, I guess is the best way to put it. And so that was truly one of the scariest things I'd done. Like this movie allowed me to expose a lot of parts of myself in every way. You guys saw me without a shirt on. I was like, oh my God, my body is not, but I was like, whatever. Like this is it gave me a place to expose myself, because I think that in the exposure is where the healing begins. Like when you finally like let all of that shit down, you can actually let somebody in and actually see every single part of you. We do a lot of trying to cover up a lot of things. We as human beings do such a terrible job. We're terrible at it, but we do this thing of constantly trying to cover up things that if you just let them breathe, most wounds heal quicker when they have air. So like if you just let them breathe and know that somebody else would be like, oh, hold on, like I have the same, oh my gosh, like you can heal quicker. And so I think that that's what we really wanted to showcase in this movie, is the exposure of what it's like to let that shit go and to let it just let it fall by the wayside, and trust that the healing can begin once you do that.
Well, then I think we have to skip ahead to that scene.
I talk long.
No, you just teed me up for it.
I really like doing this.
But I do want to talk about that concept, because we do, obviously we see, them start to bond over the beers when they're having, beers at the bar, and then in the park, and then, eventually that does lead us to what has been referred to as the baptism scene.
The baptism,
as they really have to kind of get in the water and work things out. It's some of the highest highs of their friendship and the lowest lows of that. As you and Jennifer and Lila are choreographing a scene like that and figuring out, how it's going to be, what kind of was the key to hitting all those different emotional beats?
The word that comes to mind is submerge, because as an actor, when you have a scene like that and you're just in water and you're in the course of the night, is that where we start one place and we progressively get to another place. So they're smoking, they're drinking, there's an abandon that's happening. We are technically doing a B&E because that is not our house.
Nope.
You know, it's like, I'm like, this is breaking and entering. We're not, like,
It's so stressful to watch
this
that.
is a felony. But there is this freedom, right? So the possibilities again. So, you know, this isn't the first time that James has been in this backyard with her, smoking a blunt, drinking some beers, listening to music. It's a moment where you just see them just being free, just like it's just carefree. And so I remember us doing this scene and the house that we were in and just knowing that we had to in some way show that the two of them have forgotten about everything else outside, like forgotten about everything. And for me, it was very interesting because I was like, oh, as an amputee, to actually just disrobe, like what to disrobe feels like, what goes through your head, even if it's just one person, even if it's just a friend, the ability to disrobe so freely. And as you saw, it was not an easy feat. He had to literally just go through the motions of what he does every day, of like taking this leg off, exposing, you know, what it is, and then actually getting in a body of water. But I was also like, how free this is, how safe this is, how comfortable this is. And what I love the most about Lila in this scene is that she didn't really do much except let us experience what it was. I will just say that there's this part of that scene where I pretend like the water is cold. That's some of the best acting I've ever done, because Jennifer had that pool to 98.6 degrees in the middle of summer, and I was like, it's soup and I'm gonna die in here, so I just, you know, give me my things. But that was the great part about it, is that you wanted to see them just like have this fun of just like being, you know, I call it the baptism scene because it's truly that moment where they come to this body of water, they submerge themselves, and they come anew. They come up to the surface anew, and you get to watch them discover new things about each other. You get to watch them sit in silence. You get to watch them float. You get to watch them, and then, of course, just because you're floating in this body of water doesn't mean that the weight of the world isn't still waiting for you outside of the pool, and all of a sudden, boom, it happens, and then you know that after that cleansing happens, whatever just transpired between the two of them, there's no going back. Like, that's the craziness about some friendships, is like we know how to celebrate our friends in the best way, but what do we do when we actually are confronted with some real shit about our friends that we just didn't know that there were these people, and you're like, no, there's not enough swims in the world to like it. So, but also what the challenge was for me was like, because I was very irritated with that scene, because what she did was so crushing that I was like, why can't he just get out of here? He literally can't just leave. He has to now get out of the pool, put his sleeve back on, attach the leg, put his clothes back on, and then and Lila would not let up. She was like, you have to go through that. Like, that is what it is. You have to go through the uncomfortability of that. And I didn't want to. Like, I was like, I don't want to. I want to pick up my leg. I will hop out of here if I fucking have to. I don't care. And so she wanted us to truly unpack it, because in the unpacking of it, that gave us options. It gave us options of where this friendship could go. It gave us options of where it couldn't go. It just gave us options. It gave us a freedom to truly be who these people were at that time. And also to go through the hurt, you know, like you gotta go through the hurt, you know. I don't know, that those few days were very telling, because me and Jennifer didn't really leave each other's side during this particular scene, because we wanted to make sure that we were okay. I was like, you know, we're still friends, right? Like we're still good, but also at the same time, it was like, that's just the exposure of who they are at that time. And I don't know, it was it still sits with me, that those moments of making that scene, but we wanted you to feel that as well. Like, there are moments that you get lost in that joy that they're experiencing, and then there's moments you're like, oh, damn. Like, I think I watched it for the first time with an audience in Toronto for the Toronto Film Festival, and the moment that she kisses me and says, you know, I just felt bad for you, to hear the audience go, oh, and I was like, damn. And it's like, oh, yeah. like,
Oh, we all felt
like,
that.
it's like, oh, man, right when you thought. But, I mean, that is relationship, that is friendship, that is what it is, and you just have to sit in the thick of it, right? So I think that was a big part that we wanted to explore and to unpack. I think that scene was really about the unpacking of that experience between these two people who had discovered so many different layers to each other and were able to drop, you know, the veneer, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, you know, we got to bring it back up to protect ourselves, and once it's out there, it's out there. So yeah, that was it was challenging, but it was worth it in the end, and that is a huge testimony to our director. She was in the Merc with us. Lila would not let me hop out of there. Like, she just wouldn't let me do it, so.
Well, and I realized we didn't note this earlier, but you've kind of been in the Merc in some ways with Lila for some time, because y'all have known each other for well over, gosh, is it like
18.
Oh, 18 years.
Yeah, 18. Well, now it's 2023. So I was like,
It's a full adult.
I was like, damn, yeah. I was like, oh my God, we have like a freshman in college. I've known Lila, I think, when she was a freshman in college. So I went to Yale School of Drama, which is the grad program. She was undergrad. And so when you're at Yale School of Drama, that's all you do. Literally, it's in the title. You're a dramatic 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so you have to put on different dramatic productions. And so they're usually very close to our school. But Lila doesn't really, Lila's always been the person who's like, well, if I want to see it, I'm going to see it. And so she would come to our rehearsals, she would come to our plays, and there was just something about her that I was like, I like the rebel in who you are, that you're just like, fuck your rules, I want to see art. And we would talk all the time, like smoking cigarettes, getting coffee, just fucking theater kids, man. Just running around New Haven, sitting on the steps, being like, well, what play are you reading? Well, this play is trash. And, you know, like, it was fun. And I just always knew that she was going to be something that was going to shock the system of this industry, to really just shake it and do something jarring and great. And so I graduated and I started doing theater in New York, and then she graduated and started doing theater in New York. And I promise you, our relationship was this, like, I'd see her in the streets and I'd be like, when the fuck are we gonna work together? Like, when she would scream this at me, and, you know, she'd be rehearsing in a room next to me, and then I left and did television and film, and then I got a call that she was directing this project, you know, and I immediately was like, yes. I didn't even read it. I was like, if Lila's a part of it, I will be there. If this is her first thing, I have to be a part of it. And then she was like, well, Jennifer Lawrence is in it. I was like, who? Oh, you're just gonna drop Jennifer Lawrence? And I was like, but I wanted that for her. I wanted this for her. I knew that there was something, that her craft is so, in a word, just like, her craft is unmeasured in this way. Like, you know, because I think that she comes from this theater background, and what I always will herald about theater backgrounds is that there's a pulse of collaboration that takes place. That, you know, and even looking in here, I'm just like, oh man, the things we could do with this space, you know, like there's this imaginative collaboration that goes on between director and artist that allows you to feel agency, that allows you to feel like it's yours. You know, it's like this movie is like Play-Doh. We all get to go in there and do it because Lila, you know, creates a space that way. And so this is just the beginning for her. I think she's incredible, and she does this amazing thing of making you as an artist feel safe. You know, she's not going to ask you or ask of you something that she wouldn't do herself. She's not going to muscle you in any way, but she truly has her hands in the clay with you, and that's something that is truly needed, I think, to make great art now.
collaboration and in a lot of ways true connection.
Yeah.
It all comes back full circle and leads us back to that place that we were talking about when we started this conversation, the new year, this place of hope. That is how this movie ends.
Yeah.
This movie ends kind of with a question. We don't know what's going to happen next to these characters, but they're at least in the same space together, so what will that mean? When you kind of look at the way this movie ends and what you hope the audience here with us tonight kind of takes away from this experience, what would that be?
You're so good, by the way. I just want to say, like, anytime that I get to sit in a room with her, I'm like, yes! You're truly incredible, Angela. Like, thank you. I don't know, because that was the thing that kind of, I remember me, Jennifer, and Lila sitting at a table and trying to figure out the ending, right? And it was just like, what is the resolve? What is that thing? And we realized that the ending didn't have to be an ending. It should give a space for a beginning. So in essence, we want a beginning to be our ending, because like I've discovered that beginnings are truly the hardest part. To end something is finite. We know that end's coming. We're all going, at some point, we're all going to end. Things are going to end. Seasons are going to end. That's how it goes. But to truly begin something takes a true kind of abandon. It takes a true kind of, it takes a staunch kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for here? Trust. Did someone say trust? Yes. Thank you. It takes a trust. It absolutely does take a trust. And so what we got to is that, what if we just saw these two proposition each other with a beginning and a possibility of something that could be. I remember us sitting on this road and sitting on this stoop and watching her walk down the street. And I remember thinking, whatever you do, don't look at her. Like, just don't look at her. Don't smile. Don't do this thing. She really hurt you. Like, don't. And then she sits the beer down, and I'm like, shit. I have a friend, I have a friend. And how hard friends are to make when you get older. I'm realizing, like, when you get older, to make a real friend is really fucking hard, because, like, at this point, we're set in our ways. At this point, we've been hurt by different things. At this point, all the walls that we put up, brick and mortar, they're set, and there's no room for anybody to get through. And making a friend when you get older is really hard. And so, to watch them at least try something, and I hope that after this movie you all try something. I hope that after this movie you all trust someone. Thank you so much. I hope that it's what we really need. It's the thing we really need. And I think we all just need a friend. And so to watch them both make this decision to at least hear each other out, to at least give room and space for it, was what we really wanted to. And I think that we accomplished it in its own way. We wanted to just see what a beginning of something looked like for our ending.
Well, that was beautifully said. It truly is a beautiful beginning, and just a kind of really inspiring way to kind of kick off this new year. So thank you for this conversation. Thank you all so much for being here. You guys can stay in your seats for just a second. We gotta get Brian out of here. He's gotta get to the next thing. But thank you all so much, and we appreciate it.
Happy New Year.